First, I want to thank the organizers for the invitation to that important conference. Second, peccato, I'm not able to deliver my presentation in Italiano, so I tried in English, but that doesn't mean that it's perfect English. But I ask for your understanding as well. You may have seen documentary films on the Antarctic, and you saw there ocean animals, giant animals, tons of water, penguins, icebergs. And you listened to some music which went together with that images. And maybe you have observed that mostly this music sounds British. And that is, it sounds not only British, but it sounds like symphonic music of the turn of the 19th to the 20th century, like Frederick Delius and his colleague. And we wonder, what have the penguins and the icebergs to do with British music of around 1900? It's a convention, it's a cliché. And what we are talking about when we are going now back to the ancient world, we are talking about conventions and clichés as well. When Mozart started to write an opera for a historical scenery, La Clemenza di Tito, he didn't take any care of music of the ancient world. He just wrote Mozart's music. And he had to take care of the differences in genre, that he wanted to write an opera seria and not an opera buffa in this case. But that was his main concern. His concern was not to disguise his music into an antique thing. 4 years younger, Luigi Cherubini, when he wrote Médée, he wrote a French opera based on Corneille, a French writer, and not on Seneca's play in Latin or on Euripides' play in Greek, which would be original. Now he wrote a French opera. And he also didn't take care of any ancient music or whatever thing. 1 month ago, Professor Calabretto gave a lecture in our institute in Berlin dealing with Pasolini's film on Medea, in which the diva Maria Callas, who did such great work for Medea by Cherubini, was not allowed to sing, but nevertheless they needed some music. And what happened? As Professor Calabretto lined out, Pasolini looked for something old and made his choice with Bulgarian folk tunes. So, for us it sounds exotic, for us it sounds strange, far away, but the intention is that it sounds old. But there is no proof that Bulgarian folk tones have anything to do with the ancient world. Only faith can make us believe that. So that was now the introduction to our example, 2 examples. Music for the penguins and icebergs. First example stems from 1930. L'Âge d'Or, the cult film, The Golden Age by Luis Buñuel, with a set decoration by Salvador Dali. And within this film, which has as all surrealist things, you can't render what's going on in the film. However, there is one spot where the eternal city, Urbs Aeterna, Rome, is founded. And of course that needs a little music. And we have a look at Buñuel, 1930, what goes together with the foundation of Rome, the city of Rome. First example. That was exciting in 1930, particularly the pictures taken from a Zeppelin or from an airplane, and it was a political statement because in 1929 the Lateran treatises led to the foundation independence of the Vatican state within Italy. So, and all the problems the left-wing intellectuals had with the Catholic Church at that time. So that's a political framework of this. But nevertheless, why Mendelssohn for that? And I think it's a simple thing, a naive but everyday association. That symphony is called, for whatever reason, Italian symphony, and so our filmmakers thought, well, that will do the trick if we take the fine third movement of that symphony to portray Rome. Second example. For this film, initially Igor Stravinsky should have written the music, but it didn't work out. Next, Georges Auric should have written the music, but it didn't work out. So finally, Buñuel made his choice with pre-existing music and arranged it. Mostly German and Austrian music in between Mozart and particularly Richard Wagner. Second example, 1935, Max Reinhardt's A Midsummer Night's Dream, a Shakespeare film. After Reinhardt had so much success with staging The Dream in open-air Hollywood Bowl, he got the job with Warner Brothers and very much money to do that film. And the opening of the film goes as follows. We put it in here because Shakespeare imagined true Athens and sort of an ancient Athens. So in the stage, it's a theater Athens, a theatrical ancient world. And Max Reinhardt starts the scenery as follows. Number 2. So I explained, maybe it works, I explained the scenery first. Max Reinhardt ordered Erich Wolfgang Krongold from Vienna to come to Hollywood. Afterwards, Krongold said it was his first film work, the starting point of his career, and he said, Max Reinhardt saved our lives that way, because it was exactly in the year when the Nazis took away Mendelssohn's music from the stage in Berlin, where Max Reinhardt staged The Dream so often, and he ordered Krongold for that 3-hour film only to arrange Mendelssohn's music. Not only the Schauspielmusik for it, but all the from all Mendelssohn pieces. And the beginning is, and that's fitting into a comedy, the solemn finale of the third Mendelssohn symphony, so Mendelssohn again, the so-called Scottish symphony. So we have a Scottish Athens, maybe, who knows? And he turned the solemn hymn-like coda of that instrumental piece into a big comedy beginning along with Shakespeare's 17th century words, because the chorus sings Shakespeare lines together with Mendelssohn's music. Number 3 words. So, no Max Reinhardt around, but I hope you can imagine. The question is, we have again, we can understand that a Shakespeare work has to be staged or put on the screen, and that 19th century music in a 20th century arrangement should do the trick for it, in a scenery which imagines the forest of Athens and the king of Athens, which is fictitious again because there never existed a king of Athens, but it evokes sort of, and the problem is, which we face here, is that we expect of, that's now our chief topic, that we expect music that, and the scenery, that it evokes something what we imagine would be ancient, Greek, Roman, whatever, but that in the language we never expect that. In language we want to have Euripides in Icelandic, in Norwegian, so that we can understand it. And in historical films also, we are intolerant with respect to language. When Stravinsky did the Oedipus Rex with Cocteau, together with Cocteau, they could have made the choice with Greek, but they were shy to do. They retranslated the French into Latin, which is very strange for a Greek thing. But I think Stravinsky, a good Catholic, thought, well, Latin at least is still vivid in the church. So we could try to do it with Latin, but never with Greek. And also, think of Pasolini's Medea. It's an Italian film, and the Norwegians see it in Norwegian. But they want to have a Bulgarian folk tune for the exoticism. But we hate exoticism or ancient stuff with respect to language in filmmaking. And that's one of the most important differences between music and language, not only in film, but in general, but also in film. It's a separate thing. Do you think you could?
Yeah,
in this? Okay, now we come to our chief example after World War II. No. Quo Vadis from 1951, directed by Melvin Leroy. The starting of the career of Peter Ustinov. With the music by Miklas Rosa, Hungarian-born, then he graduated in Leipzig in Germany, and then before emigrating to the United States and doing his famous film music career. It's one of these monumental films of the 50s, based on films like Gone with the Wind of 39, but then turning it into historical topics. And after World War II, you find often in the credits of films historical advice. For example, in Stanley Kramer's 1961 Judgment of Nuremberg, with Spencer Tracy and Marlene Dietrich and others, a wonderful film which deals with the trial against Nazi lawyers, judges, and law professors, not the political stuff, but against scientists and legal persons. And there you find in the credits historical advice by Erich Maria Remarque. So historical advice for a thing which only happened 12 or 13 years ago. And if you need historical advice for that, then of course you need historical advice for ancient world if you start up. Quo Vadis credits Hugh Gray, A-Y, not E-Y, Hugh Gray, for lyrics and historical advice. What does it mean? It's hard to find Hugh Gray on the internet. In the literature you miss him anyway. It's all the time self-referential. It comes back to Quo Vadis. So the man exists only in Quo Vadis, apparently. However, he did the lyrics for the songs, and he advised Miklas Rosa for what could be music for that first century after Christ film, where you have Romans hanging around and Christians, early Christians. And we give you two examples for it, just to get an idea what could be done. Number 2 and number 3. Thank you, that gives you an impression, but be sure, Christians in the first century didn't sing such thing. It sounds very well of the 17th, 18th, maybe 16th century, a little East European, a little synagogal in combination. So a mix of what we know about certain church music, just combine it, and of course it's a neat idea, because you say, well, in the first century the Christians were chiefly still Jewish, so we can do a little mingle of music. But apparently it does the trick. What we expect most of a monumental film dealing with Romans would be that.
Du hast recht, Petronius. Wie lieben Sie mich? Wie sehr, in der Tat.
We don't know whether or not the Romans had so many drums at hand for their triumph. Apparently, they even reconstructed the salvicas, the Greek trumpets, because it's not an ordinary horn or a trumpet sound. Of course, you can reconstruct some instruments, but that doesn't reconstruct the music and its performance. So everything what has to do with soundscape and performance would also fit into an English in the history film for England, let's say of the Elizabeth, of the time of Elizabeth the first, or for French Revolution you could have the same. You also could have that music, because it can't hide that it's written around the mid of the 20th century. Even if Miklas Rosa, on the advice of Hugh Gray, did his best to be inspired by certain thoughts. And the problem is that we simply don't have any sources of ancient music. There are around 55 fragments, most in the 1st to the 3rd century, but it's only fragments from tragedy, no complete piece. But nevertheless, there is one piece of 15-second length which forms an entire song. But try to imagine thousands of films on the ancient world based on one 15-second song. That's hard work. And but nevertheless, in Quo Vadis, exactly this melody shows up. The only song preserved fully, because it's the Sikilos song, dated 1st to the 3rd century, on an epitaph. The circumstances are not clear. It is a stele which was found in Asia Minor in late 19th century. They first discovered only the text, couldn't read the notes, which were the musical notes on the stone. By today, it's in the Ancient Museum in Copenhagen. It was stolen for a while again, and we all hope that it's not an imitation of the late 19th century, that it's truly the true thing, what they have found. Because the man who transcribed the musical notes finally, Hugo Riemann, the music historian and theorist, he wrote at the same time, he invented a Latin treatise which discusses rhythmic problems, puts it into the 14th century, and the music example is Gott erhalte Franz den Kaiser, the Austrian and today German national anthem. So it was fiction what he did, but there are still music historians until today who think it's an original medieval treatise, and hope that it worked better with the transcription of the Sikilos song. The Sikilos song is not on the soundtrack of that movie, but on the speech track. And therefore, in each national or in each different language edition, synchronized dubbed edition, you find it's sung differently, but it's the melody. The question is whether or not Hugh Grant, he could take it from a textbook on music history. In the chapter on ancient Greek music, you find that Sikilos song all along in the music histories. So that Miklos Rosa wasn't bothered at all to do that, so he could have done it at all. But the funny thing is that Peter Ustinov sings this song as Nerone. And of course, this was the poet of all poets, the artist of all artists, and the entire thing is ridiculing that song and that music. So the only original sound sequence of the ancient world, in this case Greek world, you can use, at least that's what the film tells us, only use for the sake of a caricature. Now listen to Nero himself and to the old song, and listen to it in German. I told you that people expect from the music the right thing, but no, from the text, to understand it, but I give it to you musically, and therefore in German.
Ich wäre heute fast zu einem tragischen Entschluss gekommen. Ich hatte mich entschieden, heute Abend nicht für euch zu singen. Ein Schmerzen im Hals. Und wenn man eine göttliche Gabe empfangen hat, soll man sie nicht aufs Spiel setzen. Doch die Entsagung trifft nicht nur mich allein. Meine Kaiserin hat Kopfschmerzen. Und das Einzige, was ihr Beruhigung bringen kann, ist der Klang meiner Stimme.
Ihr habt versprochen zu singen. Sonst wäre ich nicht hier.
Ich bin völlig unvorbereitet. So muss ich komponieren und auch singen. Oh, lodern Feuer, oh, göttliche Macht, oh, verschlingende Allmacht verheil, was ist geschwinder Zerstörung zu bringen? Doch sorglos wie ein Kind spielst du mit dem wilden Wind. Das alte Troja steht nicht mehr, weil du Feuer bist. Du Schnitterin, die den Boden für die Menschheit entblößt und neue Saaten setzt. Oh, oh lodern Feuer, oh, oh göttliche Kraft, oh verschlingende Macht der Erde.
Well, of course, it needs an ABA form, which is definitely not ancient, but to come along with at least some length, you have to enrich it with a contrasting B part and then returning part. By the way, when NGG was made in the second edition, the German music encyclopedia, I was responsible for the ancient word stuff, advisor, and so they asked me what to do with the article Nero. What to do with the article Nero, because it was in the first edition, and they discovered that in both editions of the New Grove Dictionary of Music and Musicians also was an entry, Nero. Of course, the one article was taken from the German, and the English from the German, and the German from the English, though it's all that lexicographical mafia hanging around here. And whom I would recommend as an author for that article. And I wrote back, we don't know anything about Nero. We even don't know which instrument he played, and that he thought he would be the artist of all artists is not enough for an entry in the 21st century music encyclopedia. And if you do it again, the entry, then you should add an article on Hitler and on Stalin as well, because we have much more evidence about their artistry than we have in the case of Nero. But it's, of course, that was the end of the entry of Nero. So, because I didn't want to have an article on Stalin in the music encyclopedia. Let's return to the original. In a Spanish recording, but because it's so little, that song, from which we have only the rhythm and the pitches. What we don't have are all performative circumstances. We don't know what instrument they added and so on. So that's all, again, according to conventions. And in this case, we have a singer plus a guitar, which is so far okay. Number 11. Some 20 years ago. We found it.
Como de mim, seu Senhor,
Sima Policromie.
They have the three-part form also, but 3 times the same. Instrumental, sung, instrumental, at least to fill 1 minute. So, you see, it's a hard thing for movie makers to go into the ancient words. Best way maybe for the histriones is still what Mozart and Cherubini did. Just do it and don't take care of anything. Otherwise, we may turn back to the penguins and icebergs and continue writing British symphonic music of around 1900. Thank you very much.